Really good to be here this morning. Really good to see y'all. Greetings from Ed and Jeannie, Mom and Dad. The plan was all four of us. That was the plan. But Mom had kind of take a couple steps back. She had hip replacement surgery a few weeks ago. Was actually doing really, really good. She still is doing really, really good, to be honest. But she was doing too much. And she had actually gotten up to walking almost up to a mile, which was apparently a no-no, but they weren't told anything different. So, and she was getting some soreness in her hip and a little bit down her leg and into her knee a little bit. And so the doctor said that is from doing too much, so you need to cut it way back. And because it was all tight and sore, and that part kind of just happened a few days ago. And because of all that, he said no to a road trip, and and so that is why they're not here. The plan was for them to be here, but they send their greetings and love to y'all, and I'm sure they'll probably next year. I think they'll set something up to come down and share as well. I've thrown a couple of pictures on our presentation at the very end of Dad and I's last trip to Indonesia. I think like three or four pictures, and so I'll share that with you too at the end. And I know some of y'all probably have supported that too when the two of us have gone over. We'll probably be looking at doing that again in March, just because we're back on home assignment. So, yeah. So anyways, Geoff and Tina Casteel, that's who we are. For those that don't know us, we serve with Pioneer Missions in Peru, South America. We work amongst the Quechua people in the Andes Mountains out of Huánuco. That would be a state. You can look at it. It's a little yellow section there in central Peru, and that's where we serve out of. We've been there. Huánuco gets its name from guanucos, which are llama-like animals. It's not a llama, but it's a llama-like animal. They actually have several kind of varieties of these animals in the mountains. That was one of them. And no longer, this particular one is no longer in our area. But it used to be, and that's where the name Huánuco came from, and so we it's kind of interesting. We work in the department or the state of Huánuco, and we're based out of the city of Huánuco, which is the capital city of the department, and it's Huánuco. So
confusing.
Yeah, I guess it can be confusing. Makes it easy some ways and confusing in others, I guess. So. We've been there around about 22 years now, so it's been a while. We're involved with evangelism, discipleship, and leadership training amongst the Quechua people, and we'll be getting into that a little bit more. There's actually 5 dialects of Quechua that are out of the city of Huánuco that actually kind of butt into the city. We work with one of those dialects specifically. With our leadership training, we actually have it open to all of them because that's done in Spanish. And so we'll see how that develops in the future as well. But okay.
So the purple part on there is Quechua. This is a language map, so it shows you where the Quechua people are located in Peru. So who are the Quechua people? Way back when, there was in the Andes Mountains, there was a lot of different tribal groups that lived in the mountains. And when the Inca came along, they conquered all these tribes and sort of united them together into their empire and spread the Quechua language and culture throughout the mountains. So now they're considered just one tribal group, but before they were various tribes. Today, the Quechua people live in Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. So they're a very, very big. They're a very big tribal group. Today, we also wanted to share with you some of the challenges that we face reaching the Quechua. And because they live throughout the Andes Mountains, they're a very huge tribe. There's 5 million Quechua in Peru alone. So it's a very huge tribal group. So that was one of our challenges when we went to Peru. How are we going to reach 5 million people? It's a huge task, right? So it was very evident that just our small little team wasn't going to be able to do that. So one of our goals when we went there was to pick a location that was central. So if you remember the other map, Huánuco is kind of in the middle of Peru. So that was strategic. And then also our plan has been to, along with evangelizing, raising up leaders who can then go even farther. Like they will spread everywhere. In fact, they can, it's amazing to watch them. Like we have to use cars to go up and down the mountains, but they'll just walk everywhere, and they're very fast. It's amazing how fast they are just up and down the mountain. So they will do it a lot better and a lot quicker than we will, because they don't have to learn the culture and the language and everything. So that was one of our, that's one of the challenges.
Yep. Another challenge has been the illiteracy amongst the elderly and amongst the Quechua people, at least in our area. The dynamic has been changing over the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so. As schools go into these areas, as the government, as roads go in and the government can put schools into these areas, what happens is the schools are in Spanish. And so it's both a positive and a negative, I guess you could say, because you definitely want them to get educated, right, and read and write and all that stuff, which is very good for them. They need that. But the negative side is, at least in our area, it's causing them to lose their Quechua tongue, their Quechua language. And so that's one of the things we've faced too. When we first got up into some of these Quechua areas, you'd hear the kids playing in the street or in the plaza, and they'd be using Quechua. Well, that has completely flipped. Now you hear them playing out in the street and Quechua and stuff, and the Quechua kids are now using Spanish. Their culture hasn't changed, but there's that dynamic, that language shift that's happening in our area. In the Cusco area, that's remained. They've made a really strong effort to keep the Quechua, so that's great. I would love to see that here, but it's just not what's happening. So the elderly primarily still speak Quechua, their native tongue. A lot of them don't know how to read or write, and so how do you reach them, right, with the gospel? And so one of the things that we've been privileged to be able to partner with, or use, I guess, we're not partnering with missionaries specifically, but with their efforts, has been with Faith by Hearing and Proclaimers. Both of those do recordings of the Bible, and so since Wycliffe had done the New Testament, and they're working on the Old Testament in our area, since those have been translated and done into Quechua, then they've come in and they've put that all on a recording. And so actually some of the very young man that was a Percy that was in the picture earlier, he's one of those that have done that recording in Quechua. And so it's really, really pretty cool. So as we've gone into some of these areas to talk and work with leaders and do leadership development, one of the things we had taken was we didn't have very many radios initially. And so we took a few with the idea of getting them into kind of just a few people's, key people's hands. And the idea of later doing more, right, as we can get our hands on more. And so that's what we were doing in this particular village. We'd given that particular radio to a pastor, and this old Quechua lady came up and said, "Can I hear that?" And so she took it from him to hear it, and that was kind of it. And it was both neat and sad at the same time. She said, "This is the first time I've been able to control the Word of God." Does that make sense? Okay, like all of us, we can grab the Bible, we can open it, we can read it when we want to read it, read what passage we want to read, because we're able to, right? We can read, we can write. Well, she can't read or write, and so she was dependent on somebody else to do that for her. And you can imagine, hey, maybe your grandkid has time today, maybe he doesn't, or maybe the son does or doesn't have time, or all that. Well, that was the first time, she said she'd been able to actually grab, get a hold of it, click verse by verse, chapter to chapter, book to book, whatever she wanted. And so she was not about to let that out of her grip. So she took that one home. Go ahead.
Okay, so another challenge that we face with the Quechua is their worldview. Their life is based on agricultural and pastoral farming. And family and community is very important to them, but so is animism. Animism, I don't know if you've heard of that, is spirit worship. So the Quechua believe that there are spirits that control the events in their life. So when you want something or if something bad happens, you have to figure out which one is controlling the situation and offer things to them so that you either get better or get what you want, like wealth or good luck. They say a lot of times good luck. That animism is very important to them. which also affects, they live in the mountains. They're tied to the mountains through their daily life and ancestry, and also through spirit worship. So to the Quechua, they believe that the mountain is an old man, a spirit of an old man. And they see him as like a father figure. He is the one who watches over them because they live on the mountain, so he's the one that gives them a place to live. He's the one that provides crops for them. He's the one that provides grass for their animals. So they see him as the kind of like a father figure that protects them. And however, you have to appease him constantly. So I don't know, this is the bottom of that picture. Okay, so this is the top of the mountain, and this is the bottom of the mountain. An artist drew, I think this is it totally shows how they view the mountain in their minds. And so this is the bottom of the mountain, and so you can see there's two guys one guy is offering liquor to the mountain because that's what old men want, right? Liquor. So that's one of the things that you can give the mountain to appease him. And then underneath the mountain, there's like a sack of potatoes, kind of depicting that he's protecting that for them, and also then the animals on the side. So it's very ingrained in their mind, that constantly giving things to the mountain in order so that they have good crops and their animals don't get lost or eaten by wild things or whatever. Always offering things to the mountain. That's always, it very much enslaves them to that thinking. So that is one of the challenges that we face there.
Galatians 4:8 states, "But then indeed, when you did not know God, you served those which by nature are not gods." And so this really kind of describes their worldview, right? How they're enslaved by that worship of spirits, and how that keeps them enslaved. They're always having to appease them, make them happy. And that's what they're enslaved in. And as we can imagine, that's very difficult, very difficult life. There's no freedom in that, like the freedom that we have through Christ, right? And that's what we want to bring to them, or at least, present that to them. That's our job. And so that worldview definitely keeps them under bondage, and that fear of just upsetting the spirits, and all that. So their life just revolves around these rituals, revolves around the shamanism that they have. They'll go to shamans for anything. They might have lost an animal. They might have lost a sheep or something. So they'll go to the shamans to figure out, okay, shaman will help me find out who was the one that stole my animal. So you can see that just in every aspect of their life, it's just an enslavement to this, just a bondage to that, yeah. And so obviously to work around this, it just takes a lot of teaching. Wow, I was a lot younger there. But it takes a lot of time, a lot of years, and a lot of just patience in teaching them through this. This is the young couple here is Percy and Yolanda Capcha. He's my Quechua co-worker, so I work very closely with him, have worked closely with him for many, many years. And so he's kind of my right-hand man for the Quechua aspect of our ministry. And so I have a lot of years working with him too. And so he goes up as well into a lot of these villages. This year he's working on the Old Testament translation, working on with Wycliffe to get that accomplished. And so, but he's my right-hand man in teaching as well. So, so anyways, it just takes a long time to work through those worldviews. We use the chronological methods, what we use, just because we go back through Genesis. We teach them about creation, who made the mountain, right? Who's actually the Lord of all the creation. And so we actually go back and work with them rather than, worshiping the creation. You can worship the Creator who made all those things, right? Who made the heavens and earth. So, yeah, that's our goal with them there.
So another challenge that we face in the city, in the mountains, it's the animism. In the cities, it's syncretism. And in our area, which is a combination of Catholicism, evangelicalism, and animism. So that is more, this is the picture of Wanaka where we're based out of. That's more prevalent in the city, this mix of all these things. One of the very at the core of the syncretism is patron saints. And so the patron saint of Huánuco is called, this picture of him, he's called Señor de Burgos. And they dedicate the entire month of October to him. Everyone that are his devotees dress in purple, and they pick certain weeks of the month where they'll pick the day and then the streets that they're going to walk through, carry the statue, the idol through. And so then everyone dresses in purple. The guys carry the idol, and the women are walking in front. This doesn't have a good picture of that, but they're with incense. And they pass through these streets, and everyone on those streets has a little table outside their house, and they'll put their house idols on there. And then as the idol is walking through, they'll pray to it, and some people can even like offer it the special gifts for extra good luck that year. So it's a very big thing with the people, more so with the people that live in the city. Instead of the mountains where they pray to spirits, in the city they pray to patron saints.
Yeah, syncretism within the evangelical church is interesting too. There's a lot of churches that don't have any good foundations. A lot of their pastors and leaders have not been taught properly, and so you can get all this just mesh of stuff that goes on. One of the things that happened is with our little church in Wanako, we face this because we'll get people coming in that have been in some of these different churches, and it has just kind of brought to light a lot of things that they were believing, a lot of things that they had to deal with that we have to go through and kind of reteach and over with them again. And one of the things, one of the examples was we had a family that came over from another church, and they were they were saying that their pastor was fighting demons at night. So he would apparently go into hell. Huh?
Leave his body.
Yeah, he would leave his body, go into hell, get this key or whatever it was that was needed, bring that back, and then unlock these things for the different people, different needs or spiritual needs that they had. And so he would come and kind of unlock this. So very interesting. In fact, when you hear that, and then if you've worked with shamanism in the villages, it's like there's no difference. Yeah, it's the same thing, only now it's within the church, right? It's synchronized with their beliefs. Now they've added verses of the Bible to that to maybe support that and whatnot. And so you can just see how that really, really can mess people up, right? Just with their knowledge of the Word of God, and how that is not a clear knowledge of the gospel either in there, right? And so, like I said, we usually, when we get people like that, it's a lot of reteaching that we have to do. We have to start from zero with them, and we'll do that oftentimes out of our home. So, yeah, in the pandemic, too, another example was during the pandemic, the pastors were telling their congregation they needed to stop calling the COVID virus the coronavirus, because corona in Spanish is crown, and crown is a symbol of power, right? And so they were saying you're giving it power by saying corona. So anyways, you can tell they grab onto all these little things and they'll start believing them and giving that more power than the Word of God. And so, yeah.
So these are, as you can see, these are real challenges that we face. Sorry, can you hear me? But they're no match for God, right? And over the last 3 years, we still don't understand why, but like lots of young people came to our church. A lot of the younger adults, like 20-year-olds and early 30s, just were coming to our church and having a lot of questions, seeking truth, and some of them, a lot of problems in their life. So this last year was filled with just working with them. And one of these girls was Emma there with her dad and her sister and cousin. They came from one of those evangelical churches. So I had the privilege of discipling her. And we would just we always make sure that they understand the gospel first, and then we go through like I teach them how to read the Bible, study the Bible for themselves, and then other things depending on the questions that they have. So we were just doing that, going through scripture, and one day she told me, I used to think, she went to church for I think it was 8 or 10 years. She said, I used to think that I had to be good and then God could save me, but now I understand that God already did everything for me and I just need to put my trust in Him. So it was really neat to see just her come to that understanding. She's very on fire for the Lord. She really is. She's like the encourager of her family, trying to get them to come and be, learn, because her dad, especially, his name is Gabriel there, he's kind of so about God, so you can pray for him. And while I'm here in the States, I usually do Sunday school there, so she's the one that volunteered to take my place while I'm here. So it's just neat to see how God is working in her life. And then also, Albert and Gloria came to our church. They were not saved for sure when they came. They had a lot of problems, but their main problem was that they didn't know the Lord. Yeah, they still have a lot of problems. It'll take a while, but their biggest problem was they didn't know the Lord, and they started coming to the Thursday night Bible study that we have, and at that time we were going through this book that explained the gospel really well, and so they had a lot of questions. It was just neat to see how everyone in the group participated in sharing the gospel with them many, many times. Albert was a lot quicker to believe, but Gloria, she takes a long time to make a decision, and it was many, many hours working with her, and she'd come to my house and we'd go through scripture, and then the next week she would come and I would be like, remember what we talked about last time? And she'd be like, no, but I just know good works. I need good works. So I was like, okay, let's start again. So it was a lot of that with her. But slowly but surely, she started to understand, and it was just really neat to see how God changed her life. Like Geoff said, they still have a lot of problems because they lived for so long without him, and there's a lot of habits that are developed that they have to break, and so they got married, that was one of the issues, living together, and so we had to explain that to them. So they've taken steps, and it's just really neat to see the Lord working, but in their case, it's just, small baby steps at a time.
Yeah, continue to pray for him, because she was definitely one of those where if you got a call at, say, 9 or 10 at night, you knew this is going to be at 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah, that's true.
And it can still happen. So it's all right, like Tina said, baby steps, right? And they've definitely made some right steps in their life. It's kind of like working backwards, right? They were living together, doing all this stuff, and so it's kind of like going back and kind of retracing all that and doing it properly. And so now that they are married, which is good, but now you can imagine all the issues even within the marriage that they're having. So continue to pray for them if you think about them. Galatians 6, 8 through 9 is a good description of our last several years. We've had several good years of just sharing the gospel and discipling these young adults. A lot of positive things happening there. Galatians 6, 8 through 9 states, for he who sows to his flesh will of his flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart. Kind of states how our ministry has been with the Quechua. Nothing happens quick. Nothing happens fast. I know a lot of works. It's just different in each work. Some of them have results really quick. Boom. It's like, wow, look at that. And others, it's kind of in the middle. It's taken some time, but then there's a lot of results. With the Quechua, felt like we're sitting there, boom, banging our head against the wall. But as you look back over the years, you can see, oh wow, there has been progress, right? There has been good stuff that's happened. The Lord is working in their lives, and the Lord is moving, and there is a difference. It just takes a long time. And so that's kind of been our experience. A couple of neat things that we've had this past term was a couple of different baptisms. This one was of Ephraim and Evelyn. You can see them both, Ephraim on the right, Evelyn on the left. It was during rainy season. The rivers were too high. What we really like to do, if we can, is we combine a potluck and do the Lord's Supper potluck and the baptism, if we have them, because that's just an awesome time of celebration, right? And so it was rainy season. The rivers were too high. This day wasn't rainy. It's just the rivers were too big to do a baptism in the river. And so we bought one of those pools, that you put together and fill up. And so this is actually at our property and our home. We did that, and then the kids were splashing around in the pool afterward. But we were able to do everything but go to the river. That was the first one. And then this was our second baptism, a group of 4, I think it was. It was in the middle there. There's Koki, and then, Marin on the right, and then obviously Gloria and Albert there in the middle. They all wanted to be baptized. And so this is Koki being baptized. He's been a friend of mine since 2003, maybe, somewhere in there. When I met him, he was in college, and we would play soccer together. He wasn't saved, but this one just kind of hit a soft spot in my heart, because not only is he somebody who came to know the Lord, right, which is great, but just a good friend of mine over the years. And he's just gone through a lot. He's gone through a lot in his personal life as a single, non-married, as a married person as well. They've had a lot of issues. And as he came to know the Lord, which is just a few years ago, just seeing how God has changed his marriage, how God has changed his life, just how he, as a man of the house, has taken that responsibility on his back like he should. And so it's just been really encouraging for me to see that. And he was just thrilled, just thrilled to be baptized and make that public declaration of I'm going to follow Jesus right in front of others. And so just really, really cool, and just special time for me too. That was one of my probably my favorite times this last term was his baptism. And so yeah, a couple of other highlights from this past term have been just some of our younger guys taking on leadership roles. That's one of the struggles we've had, is men taking on leadership roles within the church. And it's just been a kind of once again, one of those long kind of banging your head against the wall moments. But this last term, we've had 2 or 3 guys that have finally started stepping up. You can just really see the Lord working in their life, and their growth, their spiritual growth, their walk with the Lord just growing. And so this is our young adults group. Eric has been teaching that. And just seeing Eric's growth and stuff. He'll help out once in a while on Sunday mornings if I can't be there, or if Duma can't be there, then he's willing to take a Sunday morning as well. He's been leading the young adults, and as well as helping with our Thursday night Bible study. And another one is Ephraim. This is Ephraim and his little brothers. These are all Quechua folks, by the way, but they're Quechua folks that have grown up in the city. They don't speak Quechua, or Ephraim does a little bit, but he's lost a lot too. So Ephraim, he's not quite as far along as Eric is, but has started to take on leadership roles, and just seeing his love for the Lord and his love for his brothers and his family. He's still single, so pray for a great young lady for him as well. This is our Thursday night group, and it's just been an encouraging time with this group. It's a lot of the group from the other church that had come over. So it's been we've started with 0 with them, but it's just been a special time with this group of young adults and older ones too. I guess everyone's welcome on the Thursday night one, yeah. And so you can see Gabriel's in there, Emma's dad, and Koki and his wife in the back. And sometimes we even have some younger kids. It depends on if they can find somebody to watch them or not, and they're welcome to bring them. We usually do a sandwich. We'll have like cold cuts, we'll have sandwich there, and coffee. I've gotten them into coffee and strong coffee. And I can tell if you're interested, I can tell you a couple stories about strong coffee that we've had that are pretty funny. So here is the land. We were able to raise some money to purchase a piece of land. The idea behind this land is having a Quechua training center where we can use it to teach the leaders. What we want to do is bring the pastors and leaders out of the small churches in the Quechua villages, and bring them in and teach them, kind of get them out of their villages, because if they're pastoring up in their villages, they have all that comes with that. I'm sure you all know what that entails. As long as, and also as part of that is they usually don't get enough support, and so like pastors in small villages, there's not enough money there in the church to be able to support a pastor, and so they're usually farming and raising animals on the side as well. And so if we go up there, it's hard to get their attention for any long period of time. What we've done is we've developed a course that's kind of over a 2-year period of time that they can take. We can give them a certificate at the end that proves that they've had some education and what they've accomplished in that. And the way we do it is they come down once a week for a 2-year stint of time. And then each week we teach them, and then they go back. It'll be during the week, so then they can go back up. They can be with their congregations over the weekend, and start applying that stuff that they're learning, in their lives there. So that's how we've done that. So this is a piece of property that we bought, and this was our dedication ceremony. So we had this was actually just right before we came back for home assignment. We had our Bible dedication. We have a couple of different dialects of Quechua here that are represented. Some leaders, and there's a nonprofit Quechua organization that Wycliffe had set up, and so they're limited in what they can do. but we appreciate their help. And so they're present here, as well as a couple of pastors from our area that has already gone through our course. We're here as well. And so just a real special time. We did a pachamanca in the ground, which is it's a pig. They've chopped all up. They put different herbs and stuff, and then you cook it in a hole in the ground and hot rocks, and they throw potatoes and stuff in there, and it is really good. If you like meat, it's good. I like meat. So and so we did that. We did a meal, dedication ceremony, and just had a good time of fellowship together out there. Yeah, so here's our prayer request. I'm actually going to come back to them real quick because I wanted to show a couple of pictures from my dad's trip to Indonesia. It's just like 3 or 4 pictures, but since they weren't able to make it. So in March of this year, I went back with Dad to Indonesia. We were able to have just some really good time with the leaders. We had this time we were able to actually just focus a lot on the leaders of the different Wana churches and some of the problems and things that they're dealing with. It was just a really neat time. We were able just to have that kind of a time together, just to talk over things, just to encourage each other, and what are the issues you're dealing with, and kind of talk through some of those problems and issues that they're having, and just had a real special time with them. So here's a picture of Dad and I with some of the Wana leaders. It wasn't all of them, obviously, but so also one of the things that we were doing there was going through, what's the word? I want to say Socratically. There's another word for that. Inductive. And so we're the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years, Dad's really been trying to focus on teaching them an inductive way of studying the Bible, because that's something they can take to their homes. All they need is the Bible. You know, they don't have a lot of access to a lot of helps, and so all they need is the scriptures, and they can go through that, ask questions, and kind of work their way through and learn more that way, right? And they can do this with their families as well. And so when they have their conferences, what they've been doing, I think the started before I went with Dad too, but with the Wana Church there, they've been doing that with their conferences, and so they'll go through. I think they've been going through Joshua, if I'm not mistaken, and then Dad will have some questions already made up, and then he kind of teaches them how to maybe think through coming up with questions, you know, and not weird questions. You have to control that a little bit too, but coming up with some good questions for them to ask. And so it's been really exciting. They've really liked that, and it's something that they can actually do themselves. They can do it at home. They can do it with their kids, their wives, their families. And so that's part of what we were doing while we were there. This time we went in overland. The plane was under maintenance, and the other pilot was on home assignment, on furlough. And so there was no air service going in. And so we went by land. So it went from going interior, we went car, kind of from a decent paved road to less decent paved road to almost non-existent paved road, and then almost dirt at the very end. And then we got to the village of Watu Songu, and I know if you've been reading Dad's prayer letters, you'll be somewhat familiar with Watu Songu. It's kind of where, years ago when they first went in, interior, some of those men helped Dad survey. And now those men are believers. They've come to know the Lord. They wanted to start a church there. They wanted to hear it in their language. And so that's what's been going on in that area. And then from there, we went on up into kind of more Wana interior territory. And they did have a dirt road up in there, and it was not very good. It was a little Suzuki kind of pickup truck, 2-wheel drive. And I told Dad it was just the one seat in the front. I said, you better get up there because this isn't going to be too joyous. I don't know how. I wound up in the back end on top of sacks of rice on the spare tire. And so I still think I have markings from that. We're just bouncing and bouncing. And I was with one of my best friends from youth from the Wana tribe, and we were back there, and there was about 5 of us back there trying to hang on because, literally we were bouncing. And I got to laughing so hard. Both of us were laughing so hard, but we got into the village, and I was like, man, I'm so sore. But it was funny, kind of one of those things. And the next day, my friend's like, you have ibuprofen? I was like, I sure do. And so we were popping ibuprofen that night. And then the next day, he says, do you still have ibuprofen? So it was a good time. But yeah, if you can think, I was just thinking, man, Dad at 72 was still getting it done in the old-fashioned way. So he's still doing pretty good. Yes, ma'am.
Some people might not realize
Yes. Yeah, so, yeah, the connection here is, I grew up in that village with my folks. My folks took me to Indonesia. Of course, that's where they serve, right? That mom and dad serve in Indonesia amongst the Wana people. And, so I think I was a year and a half when they hauled me off. And yeah, I didn't have any much say in the matter. But no, I love those people. I love them to death. And periodically they have asked me to go back just to more than anything, just to be with the leaders, encourage them. Sometimes they have things they're going through they don't know how to deal with, and so guiding them through some of those problems. And so if you hear that I'm going back periodically, that's what's going on. That's what's happening. So here's a couple of prayer requests if you guys want to look at those. And yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.